Exposed, the spine-chilling secrets of the Bellamy Dynasty's cursed cult and their hidden millions, Joanna had heard the whispers. The kind that clung to you like fog in the early morning, seeping through the cracks of her small home in Bellamy Heights. The neighbors, with their manicured lawns and bubbly family dinners, belonged to a world that felt too pristine. She was an outsider, navigating this suburban maze with 2 children to care for, all on her own. Sure, she had always admired the Bellamy's philanthropy, but lately, the rumors about their estate had twisted into something nightmarish. A hidden cult. Was that true? Her heart raced as Nathan, her 6-year-old son, dashed into Mrs. Langley's welcoming arms like moth to a flame. The old woman always had warm cookies and heartfelt stories, but now even the baked goods felt loaded with something sinister. "Come play in my garden, dear," Mrs. Langley cooed, her smile too wide, her eyes glinting like predatory beasts. Joanna felt a shiver jerk down her spine. The night was swallowing light in monstrous gulps, and an unsettling howl echoed through the tangled branches of the nearby trees. Something was wrong. Something far beyond the missing pets or the unnerving darkness that wrapped itself around her peaceful suburb. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The disappearance of pets had become an epidemic, each time replaced with gasps and frantic whispers among the moms. Joanna kept her children indoors, trying to ward off the unseen danger. Still, Ethan was carefree, oblivious to the creeping dread wrapping around her heart like a vice. With every late-night shift at the hospital, she came home exhausted, only to lie awake in bed listening to the unmarked black cars that lurked outside, the shadows pressing closer with each midnight knock. Then that stormy night arrived. The wind screamed, chilling her bones. She needed to find Ethan, who had left even collected crumbs on the floor after following Mrs. Langley to the Bellamy estate. Dread coiled around her throat as she pounded on doors, her voice cracking, but it felt like they all turned away, pretending it was just another child wandering off. She called the police, but they offered insipid reassurances. "Kids will be kids," they said, dismissing her alarm. Those words twisted in her gut. Joanna felt the restraints of despair wrap around her, clutching tighter. Determined, Joanna embarked on her own investigation, determined to unmask the Bellamy family. Each lead brought with it chilling realizations. The grand estate once glittering like a jewel now loomed ominously. The roses bloomed red, the fountains gurgled like whispered secrets. A sense of urgency gripped her as she felt the shadows settle like a shroud over her. And just when she thought she might uncover the truth, her phone buzzed with that cryptic message, "You should have left it alone, Joanna. Something wicked lurks among us, and they're watching." Suddenly, every neighbor's smile felt like a mask hiding something grotesque beneath. The walls of Bellamy Heights closed in around her, more ominous than they ever had been. Would she plummet deeper into this sinister game, searching for her son? Or had she placed herself and Ethan in the crosshairs of danger? The echo of a chilling howl resonated in her ears as the world spun darker, and she faced her worst fear, who truly lurked in the shadows. The search felt endless. Joanna stumbled through the overgrown bushes of the Bellamy estate, leaves clawing at her arms like desperate hands trying to hold her back. A sudden gust rattled the branches, and she halted, straining her ears against the wind. The sound, oh God, was that laughter. Not the innocent kind that children shared, but something deeper, darker. It echoed through the twisted trees and enveloped the air with a pressing sense of dread. Joanna's heart hammered in her chest as she stepped cautiously into the clearing before the mansion, its once bright facade now shadowy and foreboding under the cloudy sky. Thick vines wrapped around the pillars like skeletal fingers, choking the life from whatever remained of the structure. "Ethan!" she called, panic twisting in her throat, but the only response was that chilling, warped laughter calling back to her. It felt like an invitation, wrapped in a taunt. A low groan echoed from behind the mansion, sending a wave of icy terror down her spine. This time, she didn't hesitate. She sprinted towards the sound, her breath coming in desperate gasps that sliced through the thick air. Bursting through the back door, Joanna found herself in the grand kitchen, laden with dust and neglect. A dark stain marred the floor, wrought like an inky shadow in the forgotten corner. It looked fresh, glistening ominously. Her stomach churned, she couldn't focus. "Ethan!" She screamed again, her voice echoing off the cracked walls. As she searched the dimly lit rooms, flashes of her past swept over her, the laughter of a happy family, the joyous chaos of baking together, Sunday afternoon picnics under the sun. But those memories faded fast as she stumbled onto a large chamber. In the center, there was a raised dais surrounded by flickering candles, sputtering shadows that danced on the walls like trapped souls. The air thickened with something foul and sweet, and Joanna's heart sank when she noticed the grim symbols painted around the room in eerie white chalk. They seemed to pulse with a life of their own. An overwhelming surge of fear settled in, rooting her to the spot. Suddenly, she spotted the outlines of figures beyond the flickering candles, a gathering shrouded in black cloaks. Their heads were bowed, and she felt their collective gaze sweep over her, cold and assessing. "Joanna," a voice murmured, slithering through the darkness, tugging at the edges of her sanity. It was Mrs. Langley, her bright smile replaced by something eerie and hollow. "You weren't supposed to come here, dear." Before Joanna could respond, the laughter erupted again, twisted and echoing. It was no longer just sounds, it became a chorus of voices. "Join us! Join us!" they cried, and Joanna felt the walls close in, pressing against her chest like the weight of her fears. That a haunting wave of realization washed over her. These weren't merely cultists, they were her neighbors, the people she thought she knew, transformed into something unrecognizable, something monstrous. The very faces she had seen at school drop-off were now part of a nightmarish tableau. Panic surged through her veins, giving her strength to escape. But just as she turned, ready to run, a child's voice broke through the chaos. "Mommy, stay!" Her breath caught, frozen mid-escape. It was Ethan. "No!" As she turned back, the candle flames flickered wildly, casting grotesque shadows of twisted faces. Were they smiling at her? Did they truly want her to join them? The world around her spun in a kaleidoscope of terror as she was shoved back, deeper into the darkness surrounding the dais. With desperation clawing at her throat, she had to decide. Would she plunge into the depths of the terror that awaited her, or was there still a way out? "A choice must be made," Mrs. Langley's voice whispered, chilling Joanna to the bone. And as the shadows leaned closer, she felt all eyes on her. What had she opened Pandora's box? What price would she pay to find her son? The air crackled with tension, pulling Joanna deeper into the despair that surrounded her. She could taste the staleness, could feel the cold sweat pooling at the small of her back. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but the moment her eyes locked onto the shadowy figure further back in the room, she froze. Ethan's small frame was barely illuminated by the flickering candlelight. He stood there, eyes wide and wet, innocence fighting through the darkness that swallowed the others beside him. "Mommy," he whimpered, a sound so fragile it felt like glass shattering in Joanna's heart. "Ethan." Joanna's voice rang with desperation as she stepped closer, but the closer she got, the more the room seemed to twist and churn. The symbols on the walls seemed to shift in meaning, spiraling into shapes that invoked something sinister. "Stay," he begged again, a grasping plea. Before Joanna could reach him, a cold hand seized her wrist, ripping her from the moment. She spun, meeting the gaze of a petite woman with hollow cheeks and eyes that shimmered like broken stars. It was Mrs. Langley, but now her smile was a rictus, and heaved forth in a breathless whisper, "Join us." The walls creaked, and the cloaked figures began to sway, as if pulled by an unseen force. Joanna's heart raced, dread clawing at her insides. She yanked her arm free, stumbling backward, her eyes darting to the door, the only way out. But a surge of bodies now stood between her and freedom. "Join us!" echoed that sinister chant again, resonating in her ears like a sickly dirge. Ethan's eyes looked downcast, his small hands squeezing a blood-stained cloth. Her stomach turned. Had these people taken her son's innocence? "Please!" she called, voice cracking. "Ethan, come with me." But he didn't move. Instead, he blinked slowly, his thoughts enshrouded in that haunting lull of the cult. Her son stood, lost in a world of shadows, untouchable and unreachable. The words of Mrs. Langley wormed their way into his mind. "Don't you love your friends, Ethan? You must learn belong." A vibrant scream of horror bubbled in Joanna's throat. She lunged toward him, shoving through her neighbors, feeling the texture of their cloaks like the cold touch of death. The light from the candles distorted, casting ugly shapes on their faces, and just as she reached Ethan's side, the swirling mass of cloaked figures surged forward, hands stretching greedily, curling around her arms and waist. In that moment of pure terror, Joanna felt herself being pulled toward the dais. The chant resonated louder now, reverberating in her bones. The ground trembled beneath her, almost alive, each thundering beat a reminder that she was too late, too caught in their web of manipulation. Panic clouded her thoughts as she wrestled against their grip. "Mommy!" Ethan cried out, this time fear saturating his voice. "I'm here." She gasped, tears blurring her vision. And then, as if joining the dark design of the room, the figures drew closer, faces twisted in horrific glee. With a surge of fury, Joanna pushed back, her boots digging into the floor, desperately trying to break free. Yet, with a final grasp, the crowd yanked her into the center of the dais, shadows pressing against her, a swirling vortex of despair that threatened to drown her. In that instant, something snapped in her. "I will not become one of you!" she shouted, her voice fierce, cutting through the chaos. The laughter stopped. A single, breathless silence enveloped them all. The air thickened, sensing the shift in Joanna's resolve, and then, from the corners of the room, a low rumble of discontent echoed, as if the very walls were aware of her defiance. The figures leaned in, faces grotesque with anticipation. "A choice must be made," Mrs. Langley hissed once more. "Which could break the curse that binds," a voice whispered from the shadows. "Or seal your fate." Fingers trembling, Joanna felt the weight of uncountable eyes watching, the very fabric of reality shifting around her. What price, what sacrifice would she have to endure to save her son? And in the chilling silence that followed, a single realization struck her: escape now required more than mere survival. It demanded the very essence of her soul. As the darkness pulsed with renewed life, she knew this was only the beginning. Joanna's heart thundered in her chest as the swirling shadows inched closer, encircling her with a hungry anticipation that twisted her stomach into knots. Every beat pounded with the weight of a devastating decision looming just out of reach. She caught a glimpse of Ethan, standing frozen, his innocent face almost unrecognizable, caught between the light and the dark, between her and the cloaked figures whispering sweet submission in his ear. "Ethan," she murmured, her voice breaking, "you need to fight it. Please, just come to me." But he remained still, his gaze lost, as if her words had simply dissolved like mist in the night. The candlelight flickered, casting distorted, monstrous reflections around them, amplifying her dread. The vibrant energy of the chant swelled, rising in intensity, weaving itself deeper into the very fabric of the room. Mrs. Langley stepped forward, her presence like a dark vortex. "Make your choice," she breathed, every syllable dripping with seduction. "All of this, it could be yours. Freedom. Power. A place among us." Joanna's throat tightened, a choking sense of betrayal clawing at her. "You're lying!" she cried, her voice strained against the tide of despair crashing in around her. "You don't care about him. You just want to take more. This isn't freedom, it's a prison." Around her, the figures shifted restlessly, their eyes glinting with something primal, hunger mixed with a twisted version of affection. "You speak of prison, yet you are the one bound. Release your son, and you can join us willingly. Become a part of something greater than yourself. Something within Joanna cracked, a mixture of terror and desperation swirling in her chest. I'd rather die than watch you take him. She screamed, a primal howl of defiance that echoed chillingly against the balls of the cultists. The figures paused, their glee faltering, uncertainty flickering across their faces. Then, as if sensing her strength against the shadows, the walls pulsed ominously, shadows bending unnaturally toward her, clawed hands reaching hungrily. Foolish woman, Mrs. Langley hissed. The choice was never yours. Suddenly, the cold air turned electric, charged with an ancient malice that sent shivers racing down Joanna's spine. A sudden rush pushed her with overwhelming force, slamming her against the dais. She gasped, the breath knocked from her lungs. Join us. They chanted again, a desperate crescendo echoing in her mind, their voices melding into a maddening hum. But in that moment, Joanna's fear metamorphosed into something raw and fierce. She'd never surrender Ethan. The darkness pressed against her, clawing at her resolve, but deep within her core, a flicker ignited a mother's love burning against the tide of despair. If the curse demanded sacrifice, then she would not go quietly. With a guttural roar, she focused every ounce of her will. I choose him. She screamed, forcing the words from her lips, and then, a crack the air fractured, rippling like the surface of a disturbed pond. As the room shuddered, the cloaked forms shrank back for a fraction, their chant momentarily lost in the shock of her defiance. But she felt the weight of their anger. The atmosphere crackled dangerously. They were not ready to relinquish their hold on her on Ethan. In a desperate moment, Joanna hurtled toward her son, the world blurring around her. Fight, Ethan. Please. Come back to me. But just as her fingers brushed his arm, the ground beneath her quaked violently, toppling her sideways, pulling Ethan deeper into the shadows. The air thickened with screams, and the chant swelled into a roar, shaking the very walls of the place she had thought she knew. Then a horrid realization crashed over her. She wasn't just fighting for him anymore, she was fighting for her very soul. Time's almost out, an unfamiliar voice echoed in her mind, dark and beckoning. What will you sacrifice? With everything spiraling back into the darkness, Joanna felt a single tear roll down her cheek, a testament to her desperation. She prayed she was strong enough to break this unholy bond. But just as the shadows threatened to close in, a flicker of light burst through the chaos behind her, a beacon seizing her attention. Mommy! Ethan screamed, and in that moment, Joanna knew the real battle had only just begun. What awaited her on the other side of the shadows? The world blurred as Joanna stumbled through the chaos, her mind racing, heart pounding. Instinctively, she grasped for Ethan, her fingers stretching into the suffocating darkness that threatened to consume them both. Mommy! His voice was strained, tinged with desperation. The shadows coiled tightly around him, pulling him away, their grip icy and relentless. She could feel the pull, the dark tendrils of the cult's power, seeking to ensnare her and drag her into their fold. Ethan! Hold on! She yelled, her voice piercing through the rising din of their chants, a familiar heartbeat in the cacophony. She forced herself to concentrate, the flicker of light behind her giving her courage. That was hope. That was strength. If she could just reach him, but the shadows howled, a low, guttural sound that reverberated through the chamber, shaking the floor beneath her feet. They didn't want her to have that light. They didn't want her to rescue him. Just as she lunged forward, Mrs. Langley stepped in her path, blocking her view of Ethan like an impenetrable wall. You cannot win, Joanna, she hissed, her voice oozing with venom. Join us, and all this suffering can end. You two will remain together, unbound from the shackles of mortality. The flickering candlelight reflected a twisted grin on Mrs. Langley's face, her features momentarily illuminated. The woman's cruel intentions danced in her eyes, promising pleasures beyond imagining if Joanna only chose darkness. No! Joanna shouted, forcing her gaze past the cultist. I will never join you. I'd rather tear this place apart brick by brick. Fueled by desperation, she propelled herself once more towards Ethan, but dread gripped her as the shadows lunged, swirling around her limbs, their grasp only tightening as she fought. Each scream from Ethan sent shards of ice through her. The walls began to bleed shadows, dripping darkness like thick tar. A sudden jolt coursed through Joanna's body, thrown backward by a blast of foul energy, the cultists laughing softly, maliciously. "Your defiance only makes this sweeter," Mrs. Langley whispered, her words curling around Joanna's neck like a noose. "You will see. Let him go. Join us instead." Joanna gasped, choking against the rising fear. Yet in that turmoil, another voice emerged deep and reassuring, like a whisper on a windy night. "You are stronger than the darkness. You can save him." Where was it coming from? But there was no time to question. Ivy, creeping through her mind, gripped her instincts tighter. She remembered every moment of fragile love she'd shared with Ethan, the smiles, the laughter. "Ethan!" she screamed, bursting with fierce determination. "I love you. You are my light." The shadows faltered for just a heartbeat, a flicker of uncertainty in their dance. In that moment, Joanna dashed forward, her instincts propelling her, feet pounding against the trembling floor. She had to reach him, she had to dispel this nightmare. As she neared Ethan, the shadows howled in protest, trying to pull him away even harder. But Joanna wouldn't relent. She summoned every ounce of her motherly love and drew it around her like armor, shining fiercely against the dark. "Fight it, sweetheart. Come back to me. I'm right here." Her voice echoed, a lifeline through the pulses of sacred energy. Suddenly, a spark ignited in Ethan's eyes, a flicker that shone against the encroaching darkness. He blinked, his expression unfocusing, confusion momentarily breaking through the haze. "Mommy?" That single word burst forth in a mix of fear and need, a beam illuminating the terror-strewn shadows surrounding him. With renewed vigor, Joanna surged forward, crossing the final distance. If she could just grab his hand, but before they could connect, a shadow lunged, striking at her, pain exploding in her chest. The darkness enveloped her, swirling wildly, as murmurs of sacrifice replayed in her mind. Time's almost up, the taunting voice returned, echoing through her thoughts. And at that moment, Joanna grasped the full weight of the shadow's terrible ultimatum. They would either claim her or him, but she wouldn't let them take either. "Ethan, I will fight until my last breath," she roared, her blood boiling with righteous fury. But the room around her swayed, the darkness tightening, waiting for a misstep. Little did she know that the cult had one final trick, one last sinister revelation that would challenge everything she thought she knew about her own power. As she strained against the darkness, the walls around her began to shift and whisper, revealing secrets buried in the dark. Had she truly underestimated the cult, or was there more at play in this night of shadows and screams? What blood price would the darkness demand, and could they escape its clutches? The real horror lurked just beyond, waiting for her to uncover the truth. Joanna felt the shadows squeeze tighter, an unbearable pressure on her chest, making every breath a struggle. She could sense the pulsing energy thrumming around her, a sickening rhythm, like a heartbeat of ancient horrors. She glanced at Ethan, his small face twisted in fear, and felt warmth seep from her heart, battling the cold of the darkness. "Mommy, help!" His voice cracked, echoed in the chamber of pure dread. Each syllable sent a wave of ice down her spine. She couldn't afford to falter. "Not now. Ethan. I'm coming for you," she shouted, her voice tearing through the overwhelming despair that sought to drown her spirit. The shadows writhed like living creatures, reaching for her, attempting to coat her in their vile essence. Desperate to remain steadfast, she focused on the flickering candlelight, that beacon of hope. But the shadows pulsed and swayed, mocking her with their dance of doom. "Why resist?" Mrs. Langley purred, her voice oozing with sickening delight. "You could have power beyond your wildest dreams. Embrace your true self, Joanna." Joanna's vision blurred, overwhelming torrents of rage and fear threatening to pull her under. I don't want your power. I want my son. For a moment, the force of the shadows wavered against her fierce refusal. But then, jolting laughter rippled through the crowd. The cultists closed ranks, a wall of dark-robed figures staring, side-eyed and grinning with maddening glee. Joanna took a breath, finding resolve underneath her panic. She couldn't navigate this chaos alone. Ethan, remember our fort? We made it together, you trusted me then. She summoned the image of their laughter, lighting the darkness around her like wildfire. The shadows screamed as the warmth of their memories pierced their malevolence. Ethan's face flickered with recognition, hope glimmering just beneath fear. Mommy! I can see you! He shouted, fight igniting in his small form, pulling against his captors. Suddenly, the shadows faltered, recoiling as if burned by the intensity of Joanna's love. She leapt forward, heart racing with a mix of disbelief and desperation. She could almost touch him, her fingers brushing against the chaotic edge of darkness that tore at his body. But just as she reached out, the shadows coalesced, tearing at the fabric of her resolve. No! You cannot have him! She screamed, thrusting her hand deeper. A bone-chilling wind swept through the hall, whipping around them like a cyclone, tossing the cultists off balance. At that moment, Mrs. Langley surged forward, eyes wild. Joanna recognized the desperation in her gaze. You want to save him? You must choose. Must choose. Joanna stammered, confusion mixing with the dread pooling in her stomach. Sacrifice. The cultists howled in unison, their voices merging into an eerie chant. What will you give to save him? The words twisted through the air, each syllable etching itself deep in Joanna's mind. A damning choice lay ahead. Any parent knew the cost of love, but this? To sacrifice your true self to save a child, the weight of it pressed down like an anchor. Suddenly, flickering memories flashed before her, a life she battled to preserve. Visions of Ethan smiling, laughing, the chaos faded. Do it. Join us. The shadows cried, twisting closer beneath her feet, pulling her down. Joanna. Ethan's voice broke through the haze. Help me. Don't listen to them. Stay away from my son. The fire rose in Joanna's chest, richer than any fear, burning hotter than the darkness that surrounded her. But just as she prepared to make the leap to snatch him from oblivion, a tremor shook the ground. It felt like the very bonds of reality were tearing beneath her. In that unstable moment, a haunting revelation flashed across her mind. There was much more than just her love at stake. A price far greater than she had ever imagined. As she steadied her breath, a shadow broke away from the group, crawling at her feet, an anguished voice crying out from the darkness. We are your kin, Joanna, you are one of us. The words twisted like knives around her heart, raising terror to heights. She never thought possible, could she truly sacrifice everything she held dear to save Ethan? In that moment, the whole chamber erupted in blood-curdling laughter, each note a dagger. Shadows danced wildly, beckoning her to join their ranks. The final choice loomed, and every heartbeat felt like a countdown towards oblivion. What horrors lurked in surrendering her soul and embracing the darkness? The shadows waited, eager to reveal truly what had been buried beneath the surface of their cult. The true nightmare was about to begin. Joanna's heart pounded in her chest like a wild animal, thrashing against her ribs as she faced the shadows. Panic twisted her insides, threatening to constrict her throat. You are not my family, she screamed, feeling the air thicken with darkness. But the shadows pulsed with a life of their own, whispering promises unheard. You are a loss, Joanna. You belong with us. Imagine the power, imagine the freedom. Ethan's desperate cries sliced through the fog like a knife. Mommy. Please. His voice cracked, striking a raw nerve that set her blood boiling with fury. She couldn't lose him. Not to this madness. Not now. Stop. Joanna shouted, forcing her eyes to remain locked on Ethan. His little face, twisted in anguish, ignited a flame deep within her. With every ounce of will left, she pushed forward, defying the gnawing shadows. The flickering candles around them flickered more than ever, nearly snuffed out. Yet, as if understanding her struggle, they burned brighter. "Your defiance is amusing," Mrs. Langley hissed, her voice weaving through the air like smoke. The cultists surged forward, hands clutching at the tendrils of dark energy that intertwined with Joanna, pulling her closer. "You think your love can save him? It only binds you to us." The shadows encircled her, pressing against her skin, chilling her bones. She felt fragments of her spirit tethered at the threshold of despair, but a small, fierce voice inside urged her to hold fast. If she succumbed, what would become of Ethan? The thought alone was a chilling specter. Joanna breathed deeply, trying to marshal what little strength remained. "I'm not afraid of you." Joyous laughter erupted from all around, filling the void with a horrifying melody that echoed through the hall. The cultists swayed in rhythm, their bodies melding with the darkness, locked in a twisted dance. A sudden question flared in her mind, like a candle flare igniting a wildfire. What if she could turn the power of the shadows against them? In that heartbeat, she drew on the warmth of every cherished moment with Ethan, the light of a sunny day, the sound of his laughter, the comfort of nighttime stories. Each memory became a sword in her hand, a weapon against the encroaching doom. "I will not abandon him. Not to you, not to the shadows." The dark pressure around her hesitated, ripples of doubt surging through the throngs of shadow. "No." Mrs. Langley spat, her features twisted with rage. "You're just being selfish. You think this love will shield you." In the blink of an eye, Joanna felt the connection between her and Ethan strengthen, a glowing tether that defied the abyss trying to swallow them whole. Gathering all her strength, she stepped forward into the swirling darkness, calling back the warmth of her memories. "Ethan. Focus on me. You can fight. You're stronger than this." The shadows erupted, wild and chaotic, shrieking as they clawed at Joanna with frantic intensity. "Join us," they wailed. "Join us and we will give you what you desire most." The ground shook violently beneath them, a rift opening wide and threatening to swallow them both. She could see Ethan now, fighting against the grip of the shadows, his eyes wide with fear but daring to hope. "Mommy, I believe in you. Hold on, Ethan." With a surge of energy, she pushed against the dark, forcing her way through the swirling terror. A blinding light ignited in the center of the chamber, illuminating the fearsome figure surrounding them. "No!" Mrs. Langley shrieked as the beams of memory clawed through the shadows. They shrieked and howled like trapped souls, buffeted by the radiant warmth. The shadows stumbled back, their shapes faltering, losing their grip as light flooded into their depths. But in that one staggering moment, the air grew still, and through the growing chaos, Joanna glimpsed something hidden within the cloak of darkness, a visage lurking, malevolent and ancient. It dropped a horrific weight over her heart. "Joanna!" Ethan called, reaching out with trembling hands. "Mommy!" But just beyond, amidst the blinding glow, she recognized the anguish in Mrs. Langley's eyes. "You'll never walk away from this. No one will emerge whole." The ground split wider, and Joanna felt her heart drop. Did Mrs. Langley mean what she said? Suddenly, the shadows surged back with a furious might, and in one desperate moment, Joanna realized the truth. She had to confront not only the darkness around her but the shadows lurking within her own heart. Could she withstand the onslaught? Would she discover what horrors lay in surrendering to the chilling truth she tried so hard to escape? With every ounce of willpower, Joanna leaped toward Ethan. The fight had taken a new turn, and only desperation lit their way through the chaos. The clash of shadows and light sent shockwaves through the chamber, reverberating against the stone walls like a funeral dirge. Joanna's breath came in gasps, desperation meeting the biting chill that clawed at her skin. She had to reach Ethan. The abyss was closing in, hungry and relentless. "Keep fighting, sweetheart." The words tumbled from her lips, a desperate mantra amidst the chaos. She surged forward, every ounce of her strength focused on the radiant tether connecting her to Ethan. But the shadows screeched back, their twisted bodies writhing like tormented souls. "Love one T save you!" Mrs. Langley bellowed, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. The cultists closed in, their eyes hollow, dark stones gleaming with malice as they continued their dance, a grotesque display of madness that sent tremors of fear up Joanna's spine. The ground beneath her trembled more violently now. It quaked as if it were alive, eager to consume them both. Joanna could sense the darkness gathering, a tempest brewing at the edges of her vision. Each pulse of shadow threatened to drown her in despair. "Mommy!" Ethan's plea knifed through the air, raw and piercing. He clawed at the unseen chains binding him, his small body shaking with effort. His courage sparked something deep within Joanna, igniting embers of hope amidst the encroaching void. What if I could turn their own power against them? She thought, clinging to the brightness of her memories, the warmth of his small hands snug in hers, the laughter echoing in sunlit rooms, the bedtime stories that drew them together into a cocoon of safety. Paint the world around them with love, she reasoned. "I am not afraid," she shouted, drawing strength from the very essence of those cherished moments. The shadows hesitated, the cacophony of their voices wavering, as if her defiance soaked into their fabric. "Join us!" They screamed, voices overlapping in a symphony of temptation, drawing her in with promises of strength and power beyond her imagination. Joanna felt her resolve falter, just for a moment. What power! What freedom! There lingered a seductive whisper curling around her heart, cradling her fears, but the thought of Ethan, of his innocent trust, severed that whisper's grip. "I want to let you take him." With a fierce cry, she thrust her arms forward, letting the remnants of her hope break free. The light exploded around them, a barrier of shimmering clarity. Ethan's cries became clearer, a beacon through the storm. "Mommy, I believe in you." The cultists were thrown back, swirling shadows spiraling away from the light, mere puppets cut from their strings. Joanna watched as Mrs. Langley faltered, her twisted expression of rage shifting to something near panic. "No!" she shrieked, dark tendrils flailing blindly. "You cannot escape this. We have waited too long for you." The ground split further, a gaping maw of darkness and despair beneath them. Joanna felt a pull, a gravitational tug towards that endless void. Each heartbeat thudded deafeningly in her ears, time stretching and warping. Ecstasy and horror intertwined, the light and dark battling for supremacy. "Stay close!" she shouted to Ethan, fear lacing her voice. But as she reached for him, shadows recoiled and nested deeper into the cracks of despair, swirling like a storm around her. A flash of insight pierced through the chaos. What if the shadows were a reflection of her own fears? Did she dare confront the very darkness inside her heart? The truth snared her. Each fragment she clung to could fortify her or tear her apart. "Joanna!" Ethan's voice soared, cutting through the turmoil, a thread anchoring her back to reality. "You can do this. I know you can." Taking a shaky breath, Joanna steadied herself, concentrating on the brilliant light that formed between them. In that moment, clarity surged through her veins. She would not go down without a fight. "Stand with me, Ethan!" she shouted, pushing against the shadows with all she had. Remembering warmth, love, and safety. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled like a wounded beast, revealing a sliver of hope at their heart, a luminescent core pulsing steadily like a heartbeat. What was it? What lay hidden in the depths? But before she could grapple with the question, a piercing scream filled the chamber. Mrs. Langley's rage reached new heights as her final edge unraveled. "You're nothing without us!" she shrieked, the shadows coalescing around her in a furious storm. Just then, the ground shook violently, and the chamber began to collapse. Cracks carved startling paths through the floor. Time stretched. Would they escape the grip of the darkness? "Mommy!" Joanna grabbed Ethan's hand, determined to pull him from the abyss. They swirled amidst the chaos, but the unknown awaited, lurking just beyond the shadows, ready to snatch them both away. This was no longer just a battle for Ethan's soul, it was a reckoning. As the darkness pressed in, Joanna prepared to confront it, to unveil what lay hidden. But did she truly have the strength to face the terror buried deep within? When the final light flickered, would they emerge intact? Or would they be another sacrifice to the haunting legacy of the shadows? The world spun around Joanna like a whirlpool of shadows threatening to swallow her whole. Ethan's grip was strong, and yet she felt him slipping away into the chaos, his small fingers barely clinging to her own. Panic pulsed in Joanna's veins, making her heart hammer against her ribs. The room was a nightmarish echo of laughter, despair, and rage. Mrs. Langley's laughter echoing above it all, mocking them. "Let him go!" Joanna screamed, her voice rising above the monstrous cacophony. But her words fell flat against the swirling darkness. As the floor cracked beneath them, Joanna's determination ignited. She pulled Ethan close, anchoring her spirit with his presence. The light that had sparked in her flared brighter, and in that moment of urgency, she realized she needed more than love. She needed belief, a weapon against this gnashing void. "Ethan, together!" she shouted, wings of hope wrapping around her resolve. "We need to fight together." Ethan's wide eyes were pools of fear, but they glimmered with trust. "I'm scared, Mommy." "I know, sweetheart. But remember the stories. The brave heroes. We can be brave, too." The shadows writhed, their once formidable forms twisting in confusion. The shadows seemed to sense the shift in the air, the very fibers of their malevolent essence recoiling, as if her conviction were a light cutting through their darkened hearts. "Join us!" they screeched, but the seduction in their voices faltered. Shadows thrashed, trying to regain the upper hand. They clawed at Joanna's mind, whispering sinister thoughts, dredging up the demons she had fought to bury. Her past flickered like a dying flame, failures, insecurities, the nagging guilt that had woven the fabric of her being. The memories were tangible, each one a ghost that fed the creeping terror. But then she felt Ethan's heartbeat synchronizing with her rhythm, grounding her. "Love is stronger than fear," came a soft echo from deep within, reminding her of the stories they shared. "Close your eyes, Ethan. Trust in us." With her hands raised, she took a step forward, battling against the tide of darkness. Instinctively, she began channeling every loving memory, each word, every laugh, and smile transformed into a shield around them. The light that burst forth sharpened, illuminating their entrapment, momentarily dispelling the shadows. The ground yawned open, a chasm ready to consume everything. In that moment of fierce battle between light and dark, a chilling realization ignited. We aren't alone, there are others. Her fellow prisoners, caught in the web of Mrs. Langley's grip, emerged at the edges of her consciousness, specters trapped in an abyss, but still longing for light. Their faces flickered to life as hope coursed through her, projecting her will beyond Ethan. "Together," she cried. "You're not just pawns. Fight back." The shadows twisted and moaned, feeling their collective strength rising against the dark. The cultists, those lost in despair, began to awaken, beams of courage igniting in their eyes, fed by Joanna's unyielding light. "Fight!" Joanna bellowed, her voice rising like thunder. Just then, a figure appeared through the darkness, a silhouette framed by flickering light. The ghost of Mrs. Langley reared back. "No. You cannot. This is my domain." But the pulse of unity grew stronger, a warm wave of defiance sparkling in the air. Joanna and Ethan stood at the front, their bond like a lighthouse in the storm, urging others to join them. With each cry, they struck at the shadows. Fractures began appearing, rippling through the dark mass around them. Then, without warning, the tension broke. The walls began collapsing, the shadows recoiling violently as gusts of pure radiance surged past them. The blinding light consumed everything in its path, washing over Joanna and Ethan like a cleansing tide. And then, in the heart of that chaos, a shard of darkness erupted, slicing through the air. It pulsed like a dying star, leaving a chilling promise etched into the air, a whispering dread crawling deep into their bones. What lay hidden will never be contained. As the Echoes of that promise reverberated. Joanna felt her heart leap into her throat. The ground beneath them quaked, the horrifying truth dawning. What had they unleashed? The walls of light closed around them, collapsing on themselves, the only way out now spiraling into the very dark depths they had fought against. Would they find escape, or would they be drawn deeper into madness? Joanna's breath caught, fear curling in her stomach, as shadows gathered around them once more, more insidious, more alive. What awaited them in this new abyss? The answer loomed, dark and terrifying, as reality faded into a chilling uncertainty. The shadows writhed around Joanna and Ethan, their forms twisting and reshaping, feeding off the chaos that enveloped them. The light flashed violently, igniting hope but also revealing more of the malignant truth lurking in the depths of darkness. The air was thick with desperation, and Joanna felt the pulsing dread of what they had awakened, a force that defied their greatest fears. "Mommy!" Ethan cried, pulling at her hand as the ground shuddered beneath them. "What's happening?" "I don't know, sweetheart, but we must keep fighting," Joanna shouted, her voice breaking slightly with the weight of their turmoil. She gripped his hand tighter, heart racing, determination surging within her. In that moment, the cult's laughter erupted into an anguished wail, a cacophony echoing through the corridor of shadows, angry that their hold was wavering. "You cannot escape the darkness, Joanna." Mrs. Langley's voice slithered through the air, growing louder and more enraged. "You've awakened something ancient. You will pay the price." But Joanna's resolve only hardened. Each pulse of fear brought her memories surging back, the sweet laughter of her son, the nurturing warmth of their shared existence. She wouldn't let it end here. "We are not afraid," Joanna called, raising her voice above the wicked howls. "We choose freedom. We choose love." The shadows reacted, swirling violently, but she stepped forward with Ethan. "Remember the magic of the stories we read?" she urged, searching for connection. "They always found a way, didn't they? They fought together. We can do the same." Ethan's face lit with a flicker of recognition, the very embers of belief igniting in his innocent eyes. "Together," he echoed, determination replacing the deep-rooted fear. Joanna surged forward, arm extended, summoning every memory, every fragment of light and love to her side. The warmth radiated through her, illuminating the darkness, casting long shadows against the grotesque forms that surrounded them. "This ends now," she shouted, her voice a powerful roar filled with motherly love and defiance. That roar intertwined with Ethan's heartfelt cry, creating a symphony of hope that reverberated through the room, piercing through the malignant shadows. With renewed vigor, she felt others rising alongside them, dreamlike specters breaking the chains of despair that had bound them to the cult. Faces from the neighborhood emerged, slipping out from the shroud of darkness, their eyes wide and fearful but glistening with hope, bolstered by Joanna's unwavering spirit. "Join us!" Joanna cried out, a passionate call uniting their wills. "Fight for your freedom. Fight for the love we share." The collective power surged as memories intertwined, laughter and joy melding into a pulsating rhythm of solidarity. The shadows shrieked, recoiling from the light that grew ever brighter, fracturing under the strength of their unity. Disorientation twisted reality as it melded with that light, the weight of old fears crumbling, shadows tearing apart at the seams. Ethan squeezed her hand, anchoring her spirit. "Mommy, we're winning." His eyes sparkled, and Joanna could feel the tether of bravery between them. "Yes, we are," she affirmed, her voice resonating like thunder through the chaos. But just as they surged forward, a wave of despair swept over the crowd. "You cannot resist the truth," Mrs. Langley screeched, launching forward with swirling hordes of darkness. "The darkness is your true home. You know it." "No," Joanna shouted, her heart ablaze with determination. "The darkness is not our home. It's a cage we will break free from." With those words, she channeled every ounce of love into a brilliant explosion. The light exploded outward, enveloping Ethan, their neighbors, everything she'd ever fought for. Desperate shrieks filled the darkness, the cultists faltering, their forms twisting painfully in the glow. As the shadows began to collapse inwards, Joanna felt a surge of energy draining from her, but she pushed through, feeling each person around her tightening their bonds of light together they held against the encroaching night. "Mommy!" Ethan's voice rang like a bell, cutting through the darkness. "I see the door." Pulling Ethan close, Joanna's heart filled with fearless resolve. "Then let us go. Now." The light erupted, a storm of brilliance, swallowing up shadows in its path as they surged toward the door. Ethan pointed to a sunlit threshold shimmering with promise, but just as they approached, a vortex howled, trying to reclaim them, protruding shadows clawing at their feet, threatening to drag them back into their wretched void. "Stay strong!" Joanna shouted against the howling winds, forcing every last ounce of will into her heart. "We can do this. Together." The door shimmered brighter, their resolve meeting like a spark igniting flames, each step forward sending shockwaves resistances against the tumult. And with one final push and perhaps the greatest effort of love she'd ever known, Joanna barreled through the door. The blinding light burst forth, a radiance that tore through the lingering shadows like paper. And as they stumbled out, leaving the suffocating darkness behind, it faded into a memory, a chilling relic trapped in the space they'd left, echoing only in whispers now. In the aftermath, they found themselves in the warm embrace of the sun, breathing in the crisp, fresh air, freedom spilling over them like a warm tide, washing away the remnants of despair. Joanna turned to Ethan, tears of relief streaming down her cheeks. "We did it, babe. We're free." Ethan grinned, eyes sparkling with innocence reborn, the shadows of fear receding into oblivion. Together, they stepped into the light, leaving behind a world that had tried to devour them. As they walked away hand in hand, hearts intertwined, the neighborhood spread out before them, now bathed in the golden hue of the sun. The cult's hold was broken, and the Bellamy Heights they knew would be rebuilt anew, glowing with warmth and openness. Together, Joanna whispered, knowing true strength lay in unity and the bonds of love that could never be severed, the power they would always share. And as they made their way forward, Joanna felt the weight of uncertainty lift, hope and love would forever guide their way, a new dawn awaiting just ahead. Now's your chance to be part of this incredible journey. Don't miss out. Subscribe immediately to join our community and catch more exclusive stories that make a difference. Smash that like button now so we can feed the algorithm with your support. We want to hear from you. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this epic conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Your voice matters. Let us spread this hope together.